Hey guys, how you doing? This is to show you guys how to install and give you a little bit the ins and outs and the tricks. I'm gonna put different builds of cameras on the Ronin and show you how you can use the arm extension to give you more freedom with your camera build. You know, some of the great things that this will enable you to do is not need to buy the free fly plate and those slim IDX batteries. Probably most of you out there already have made an investment and a purchase in Anton Bauer batteries, V-Lock batteries, whatever. You probably have batteries to go with your battery kit, and more than likely you also have a battery plate to go on the back of your Epic. So this avoids you having to spend a couple $100 on the side mount and then a couple $1,000 on batteries and a charger for the Slim just so you can go on your Ronin. So by just buying the arm adapters or the arm extenders, you can just put any build you want on there. You'll be able to run matte boxes now and not have to waste time taping on filters like we've been doing. You'll also be able to run longer zooms. You'll be able to run an F55 with different lenses. The other big request is the Sony FS700 users have been asking us for arm extensions for quite a while, because while that is a light camera, it is physically long, and also very front heavy because most of the weight is on the lens because the camera's body itself is pretty light. So basically, for FS700 users, this is godsend. You'll be able to run any number of lenses now and matte boxes and all those other stuff. So we're going to get into that a little bit, and I'm going to show you. It's a really quick and easy install. Basically bolts on and bolts off. It fits inside of the case. You can see there, you just remove those blocks that are there, and the case was actually made for longer arms. So yeah, it travels easily. So the other thing is, you wouldn't think these add that much length, but with this much length, you can easily reach the limit on the Ronin with these longer builds. So while I did make a longer version of the arm extenders, I found that with the long version, you frequently get yourself in a situation where the camera actually you can fit the camera on the Ronin. I put a 19-90 Cabrio, an F55, and a battery. I mean, it was like this long. You can fit it on there. I can walk around with it. But if you try to whip it around or do anything a little bit more extreme, the motors give out. It's just, once you extend the weight that far out, you're extending the polar moment of inertia, and therefore it's more leverage. So you're exerting more strain on this top motor there, which is the pan motor. We're going to be making a longer version. It won't be as long as this one. It will include a drop down and an extension for the top as well. But honestly, I think for 90% of the people out there, just the little short extension is going to buy you everything you need, which is, you know, just running a battery on the back, running heavier front lenses, running a matte box with filters, and so I think that'll serve most people. So I think this is going to be key into everybody's Ronin kit. And the biggest thing is, you know, if you watch the other video I made explaining about the DJI long arms or the XL arms that they've announced, what are, you know, the problems with that is that it's kind of a semi-permanent install. And with this, as you'll see, it's just you take the 4 bolts out, you put 4 bolts back in with our extension, and then you bolt, you know, with the bolts we provide, you bolt the DJI arms back onto that. Consequently, the other thing you can do is you can buy two sets of these, and essentially they work like Legos. So you can stack them together and essentially get to the same length of the long arm that I built that is not released yet. But if you just buy 2 of these, and if you just want to try because you want to learn for yourself, but I can tell you, you start getting into the danger zone with the length. You can just stack them together, and you can get longer lengths. So just buy 2 sets. But for most people, the 1 set is going to be enough, and you're going to see it just bolts right in, bolts right out. It's super easy. It fits in the case. You know, if you do the longer arms, it will not fit in the case. So let's get to it. I just want to talk about the cable that is hidden inside of your arm. Basically, it's coiled in there, and there's these little blocks that hold the cable in. So one of the first things you can do is take some needle nose, and you can just grab them like that, and then yank them back, and they come out. That's what they look like right there. They're plastic. So as you get rid of them, you can pull cable out of the arm. So they did that. So there's actually a lot of length hidden inside of the arm. So we want to pull those off so that we can free up the cable. So here's one right there, and just sort of pry that out. Be careful not to damage the cable, and just pull those off. So eventually what you're going to end up with is a bunch of loose cable. So, and you want to keep these because we're going to reuse them with the longer setup. So using the supplied DJI Allen key set, or if you have a nicer driver like I do, you can start to remove the 4 screws. You can see here I already took off that one, and basically just couldn't be any easier. Just take the screws out. So once the screws are out, you'll notice it doesn't actually fall off. That's because there's actually like locating studs on the back. So, but basically you just want to wiggle it a little bit and it'll come apart. You'll see there's the Ronin cable. And one of the things I want to talk about at this point is the fact that the left and the right side, you see this little locating stud right there? That there's different sizes or different shape to that. So you can see we have an oval shape for that oval side. You can see there's the oval shape. It matches. If it's not going on for some reason, it's because you see this one's narrow, and it's not the right. See, there you go. There's a narrow channel, and then that's the fat one. So there's a left and a right. So they are side specific. So basically, you want to pick the right side, and leave the cable in that position because it's gonna fall inside this trough right here. And you see this is raised. They're raised the threaded helical studs that are here, and then they fit inside these pockets. So okay. So just pick the right side arm, and you see this one's oval, and that's oval, and you see these studs stick out a little bit, and these are recessed, and basically just set the cable horizontal there, and this literally just falls right on top, and you see there's no gaps. Everything fits nice and tight, and at that point you just reverse what we just did, and you put the screws back in there. And I won't go fully tight on one screw. I'll drive it down to where it's touching. And it's not quite there yet. There. And then I'll go in a crisscross pattern, as we usually do when we tighten things that are in a circle or something like that. So I leave them all a little loose, and then I tighten them down later. But basically, now you just put the other 4 screws in, and Alright. So once you've installed the 4 screws, this arm is loose right here. Obviously, you have to remove the other side first before you bolt this side in. So I just wanted to point that out, and you can see there's the cable. So you finish pulling this side off. Can you see that? Yeah. I mean, you don't have to get too detailed, but okay. All right. Pull the bolt off. So now you just carefully separate this, and be careful because the Ronin's going to want to swing that way or wherever, and this is going to want to drop. And this is also why I loosen the cable up before I even do any of this. So I just set this down carefully. Actually, it's better if I pull the battery out. So at this point now, you put the other side on. And same thing, just make sure you got the right, the left side is skinnier. This is the skinny block. And just line that up. And it just lines up just like so. And once you have the 4 bolts in, there's really no need to go too nuclear on these. I mean, people have a tendency to over tighten things. These are aluminum, so you can't strip them. The Ronin has a helicoil in it. And you could always replace the helicoil if you mess that up, but there's really no need. Because of these shoulders, a lot of the forces are actually on the shoulders. So, you know, this is the DJI Allen tool that you got with your Ronin. I just sort of like snug them up, you know. You can see here, like, I'm not really going that hard. It really doesn't need it, you know. I may check these from now and again, make sure they didn't vibrate off, but, you know, just be careful, and there's really no need to go too tight on that. So once you have both sides on, your cable's loose, then, you know, if you have a helper to help you on the other side, you know, it's a little neater. But because their shoulders are there, you can just set it right there and put a little bit of pressure, and it'll hold because of the shoulder. Like I said, this is also why not all the pressure is on the screw. It was a nice and intelligent design by DJI. So just set the first one in there. And just snug it, don't go too crazy. And there you go. And then just, you know, rinse and repeat and put the 4 supplied screws, and that attaches the Ronin arm to our extension. And then go ahead and do the other side, same thing. And this side's easier because it's now already supported by the other side. But, you know, you can see here this is pivoting on here, so you can move it around a little bit until you get a nice fit. You see there's no play or anything. And same thing, take a screw, throw it in there, and alright guys, so basically, you know, I removed all my little wire organizers, and at this point, you know, the arms are all assembled, and, you know, we just need to organize this loose wire here. So I'm just going to very carefully reorganize this, stuff it back into the arm, and then, you know, insert the little holders. Right, so here we are. So you can see here I use a little securing block, and I stuffed the cable back inside the arm. And, you know, you probably don't need to unravel it as much as I did, just because I was testing my longer arms. But you can see even if you undo the cable all the way, it all stuffs back in there quite nicely and cleanly. See, you can see the block there, and there's the arm extension. And so this is it all put together. So you got the 4 original screws back in there. You get the 4 screws that we supply, and you can see here we sort of kept the same factory DJI look to the part. And, you know, once again, don't go too strongly on these. Just make sure they're nice and snug. I organize the cable very nicely. You can see how well our block melds with the DJI block. Fits right in there, and the cables hide just nicely. Now that you have the Ronin all assembled with the arm extensions, the CineMilled arm extensions, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the stand and how it doesn't really work. Once you get a longer camera on the Ronin, what's going to happen is one of the things, the concepts that everyone should understand about the long arms is that you're putting weight further away from this center of gravity. There's this sort of axis right here. So anytime you move weight that way, move weight, this arm needs to go backwards an equal amount, or it just sort of depends until you get that neutral balance. So more than likely, it's not going to be where it is right now. You're going to be further back, much further back on this arm than you've ever been before. And if you find yourself, because you have a really heavy build on here, all the way back and this axis is still not balanced, then you can try to mount any sort of devices that you have on here, or even just slap another battery just as weight to try to get this motor to do less work. So, and the other thing is, as you slide this back, it's gonna, especially when it's further back than it is now. Say right here. So if this is all the way back, it's going to hit the stand. So the stand, when you get the long arms, it can sort of work most of the time, but it gets harder to work with because these arms become too small. And then also the legs are kind of small, and this is going to be a little tippy. So you should at least take this off and put it on a C-stand. Or I'm going to show you what I usually do on set for a Ronin stand. The Ronin stand is great, but I think the C-stand solution is even better. So I'm going to show that to you now, and that's actually what I'm going to use to do some builds and show you guys the balance and some of the things about actually using this. So here's what I like to do on set. Usually it's a combo stand. You just turn the gobo arm sideways and you have this pole right there. Make sure there's sandbags on it. I just take the this front little cap off, which gives me a hole right there, and I can slide on. So I like that. I can just walk up and do this. The handlebars don't move. It's fairly secure. And most importantly, for our issue that I was just showing you on that one close-up, when you have this extended so far back, first of all, it's going to hit your handlebar. So that's kind of annoying. So you got to undo your handlebars, leave them flat. And then, see, that way, it's pretty far away from that. So, and so that lets it swing around, and so that we can do our adjustments and whatnot. So let's see here. Let me grab a camera. All right, everyone. So luckily, I'm over here at my friends at Radiant Images, and they're over the years have helped me out so much, and they're gracious enough to let me do this demo video here. They have Ronins for rental as well, and most importantly, they have lots of cameras and lenses so that we can demonstrate to you the best use of the arms, or of the arm extensions. So this is a situation which I was trying to address with the arm extensions. Basically, what I touched on earlier about the fact that normally you have to have some sort of side battery plate. You limit yourself in how much you can adjust on the cradle left to right. Everyone's already got batteries for their cameras, so you know, slapping a battery on the back. Other thing that people are not doing right now is running heavier lenses, maybe like a Red Pro Prime or a Master Prime. I'm not sure. We could try those, but right now I have an Ultra Prime here, which is, by all accounts, you know, not a super heavy cine lens, but definitely a cine lens. And then normally, you know, because we can't add too much front weight because we couldn't slide the camera back because you would hit the end of the Ronin, you weren't running matte boxes. So in this case, we can even run a matte box here. I got a LMB 15 clip-on, and so basically, let's get started here. Let me slide this thing on there. So one thing I wanted to point out. So when you're working with these heavier camera setups, one very important thing that it's even on lighter camera setups, don't get complacent with this quick release for the plate. You know, I'm used to my Steadicam, which I tighten down with an Allen wrench, really nice and tight, because I do, when I'm resting in the rest position, when it's vertical, I don't want it to slide and affect my balance. This is why when I designed the Ronin quick plate and all my other plates, I actually used a bolt instead of a quick release, because the more you guys have worked with the Ronin and heavier cameras, you'll be surprised on how much this is going to slide. Even though it feels like it's attached, it slides. And so what I tend to do is I get it to where it's, fairly tight, and then what I'll do is I'll actually take the Allen that they send you with the ball head and then really tighten it, because it's, as I'm saying, with the heavier builds, this plate is going to slip. Now there's a safety catch, so it's never going to fall on the ground, but it's going to mess up your balance. So this is a tool that will always be in your pocket. So I just want to start off with a simple build, which would just be a battery on the back of your Ronin. And so once again, let's use that tool. You get that loose there. So as usual, let's find our balance here, our rough balance. So you see I got the battery on the back. I'm gonna go ahead and add the matte box, because honestly, with ISOs there today, if you don't have the motion mount, you're gonna need NDs. And this is actually a LMB15, so it's a 3-stage matte box. And not surprisingly, we're front heavy. There we go. So what I tend to do is push against my thumb a little bit. And I'm actually sliding the plate back. That's kind of close. I'm going to go ahead and cinch that down. So, okay, we're a little off on the side to side. Right there. So once you do your side to side, yeah, that's pretty good. We're probably bottom heavy, or top heavy rather. Just watch out with the matte box. And yeah, sure enough, you could also go the other way. Yeah. So just loosen the cradle. Oh, too far. And that's about right. So at this point, and now always when you have, one thing you'll find is when you get this axis balanced and you go back to flat, that actually heightens it makes this more sensitive. So it shows the fact that, see, I'm actually front heavy. So usually after you do that axis, you actually have to go back and do front to back. Now, of course, this is if you want to get it just perfect, which, as some of you know, the Ronin is really well at dealing with an out of balance situation. But once you get into heavier camera builds, such as this one, it becomes actually crucial that you really nail the balance, because if you get it wrong, the motors on the Ronin's already having to do a lot of work because of the heavier weight and because of this extension. And if you have your balance off, then you're going to get in situations where the Ronin motor might go a little limp. So there we go. That is by all accounts, a pretty well balanced Ronin. And as you can see here, let me turn this sideways. So now we have an Epic with a battery on the back and a LMB15 matte box. And there's plenty of room on the dovetail to slide the camera back as we add more filters on here. And as you can tell, there's room, and even if we slide the camera back, there's still room here. Now if you use a tall battery like one of the red bricks, you're going to run into the top. But if you just use a Dionic 90 or Dionic HC, which is just a little bit straighter right there, you'll still have clearance. And of course, once you turn it on, remember to turn this over so that it's got room to swing around with it now that it's long. It's very happy. You can see here it's well within the operational parameters of the Ronin as far as motor strength. Now, of course, naturally, there's more stuff we need to add on here. Probably a follow focus. You could put the, it helps. It really helps because you start getting pretty maxed out on your cradle to actually put weight underneath or towards the bottom of the camera. So if you can put you could put your Bartech actually on the front here, off the rods, on the bottom here, and then of course your motor will be towards the bottom, so that helps with the bottom weight. But you can quickly find yourself in a situation where you'll have room, but you won't have room on this bottom adjustment. And so the way you gain room on there is by moving weight down. So you can, if you want, flip the Epic upside down and mount it upside down. That'll help. That'll buy you, and what we're trying to buy by doing that is more motor strength. Now, let me tighten this thing. So the more we have this balance, so there's more strength left over for actual stabilization. So you can see here it's still well within the parameters. None of the motors are giving up. If you have this back axis not very well balanced, you'll see it. You saw it. It actually tried to give up right there. And I stopped it. That's what's going to limit how much weight you can put on the Ronin. Is actually the fact that this is all the way already back, and we're kind of barely in the balance for that. So as you add more weight, it's going to stress this motor out more. So this motion is what suffers the most. Tilting is not a big deal. Panning is really where it comes into play. So let's try another thing that a lot of people have been wanting to do, which is to put a longer, physically longer zoom lens. Now this is a Optimo Rouge, 16 to 42, I believe. Yeah, so this is the Optimo Rouge. Now, of course, you can lose some of these. This is a motor attachment that we probably wouldn't be using for zoom, and that will save you some weight. But the Rouge is actually a very lightweight. I think it's like 4.6 pounds. For a zoom, it's a pretty lightweight. So let me get this thing in there. Whoops. Bam. See, it's happier now. So, okay. So obviously, with the long lens, it's now front heavy. So what we want to do then is slide backwards, which is exactly what the arm extensions help us be able to do, even with a battery on the back. So now you might be thinking, okay, what about this battery on the back? So it's actually countering the front heaviness of the rig. It adds to the overall weight, which hurts us a little bit. So if you can actually power once you get into longer lenses or bigger cameras, say this was a F55 or something even bigger like a Phantom, you can take the power and put it on the handlebar, put it on your belt or wherever, and then the problem you would have is the Ronin dovetail is really short. So I think in this case I'm going to have enough, and sure enough, there it is. It's pretty well balanced right there. Let me lock that down. So once again, you're dealing with a lot more weight, and I have this closed, and then I still drive in the screw to really give me a very secure engagement and make sure that it doesn't slip and go anywhere and mess up my balance. Because, you know, if you have a lighter camera and the dovetail slips a little bit, you're not even going to notice it. The Ronin's going to take care of it. But on a heavier setup, if the dovetail slips, the motors will be doing a lot more work, and you might find them going limp, and that might be because you're completely out of balance because it slipped. So there you go. It's off, and you can tell we're in pretty good balance right now. You can see by doing our little little test here that we're not in perfect balance here. We're probably we probably need to, since we can't slide this back anymore, we probably should add a little bit of weight back here. Could be the battery for the camera, it could be a focus transmitter, a receiver rather, it could be a lot of stuff. It could actually just be weight if you want to. The other thing is that we added a bunch more weight up top, so probably safe to say we're just going to, drop the cradle all the way to the bottom. And you may even remove these stops and gain you a little bit extra just to get a little bit better balance. As you can see, we still clear. So this is a long zoom lens, and we're still clearing on the tilt down. And there you have it. It's in pretty decent balance. And I am actually at this point going to turn it on. There we go. It's now alive. Let me switch on my controller. So once again, the importance of having a stand that gives you clearance to be able to do these things. If you were trying to do this on the Ronin stand would be like right here. Either that or you'd be hitting your battery on the stand. It becomes a complete, pain in the butt. So using a C-stand like I did is really the best thing you could do. A lot of times we run the gobo arm off of a 5/8 pin on one of the AC carts. That works really well. Use a combo stand with rolling wheels, very convenient. You push that around on set. So as you can see here, it's working very well within the parameters. The motors are handling, that's the 45-degree tilt limit. Motors are handling the weight just fine. There it is, looking straight down. And if I pull this off, you'll see that it's stabilizing the heavy setup just fine. So you could be running, you go low to high, you could do all sorts of stuff. Now, once again, like I said before, the pan motor is your weak point. So since we're not in perfect balance, we're going to get to a point where, the Ronin can't handle it. So just decrease that amount and you're in the game again. Why a zoom lens, right? The Optimo zooms are beautiful lenses, and they're very popular with commercial directors. And the main thing on a gimbal is that you don't need to rebalance. You want to change a lens, you just zoom in or you just zoom out. You can put a motor on the zoom, and an AC or the DP can actually zoom in during the shot. You can do compression shots. Lots of reasons to have be able to put a zoom lens on the Ronin. Basically, though, you can change lenses without having to rebalance, which just is going to save your day and let you do so much more with the time you have on set. So, the next step would be putting a mattebox on the zoom lens, which is totally possible, and let's try it. That's why we're here. You can see we're still in pretty decent balance right now. It's pretty good for this huge build that we have on there. But now, of course, we want to add an ND. Now, here's the thing. When we get into the long zoom lens, what I really recommend is using the motion mount or We still might even look at taping on the ND filter. It's not that this won't work, and I'm going to make it work right now. It's just that you have to understand the correlation between adding weight and decreasing your performance envelope. So the more weight we add, and one thing I might do is I might take the actual mat off, and just because this can separate, and to just leave the stages on there so I can put filters, and that loses a little bit of weight, especially if I'm doing anything vehicle mounted, because this is a sail. Is that the more weight we're adding to this long setup, it's just stressing out the motors more. So the motors might give a little sooner. So, you know, if you're just walking in front of somebody doing the regular, pretty easy stuff, it's going to be fine. You can get away with pretty heavy builds. But if you're going to be running around and kind of whipping this around a little bit, or if it's like on a vehicle or something, you're definitely going to, the lighter you can make it, the better this is going to perform. So let's throw this on here. And of course, it's boom, totally front heavy. Perfect. I'm going to say it again because it's really important. You really have to not rely on that. Quick release is kind of useless when you get into the heavier builds. Absolutely every time you use the wrench and tighten that thing down. So here we have it. This is now an even heavier build. So we got a matte box, and it's pretty close. It's maybe a little bit, I went a little bit too far back, but it's definitely, you know, pretty well balanced. See, it's staying in place when I move it. And as you can tell, we're using every little last bit of the extension. The battery is, I can still fit a finger through there, even as we tilt. So the top, though, of course, unfortunately, we can't tilt down so much. So you do reach a point where you start making compromises. So this is one of them. Now, one of the things we're going to do, of course, is we're going to, in the near future, sell you a drop-down extension block that drops this whole thing down a little bit, which gives you more clearance for a long camera, and it also puts this farther back, which actually takes stress off of this pan motor. So that's something we're making, that if you're running onto these longer builds, you're probably going to want to get. And it's basically going to install just like these do. Just take the bolts out, put the block back in, and tighten it all back up. But you know, you can see here, this can still work, and we're actually going to turn it on right now. And there we go. Now it's awake and working. Now I haven't even adjusted my app for the higher weight, so this definitely needs that. But even with the low settings I have in it now for strength and some of the other things, it's still going to work very well. Let me turn on the remote control here, and there you go. You can pan around. The motors can hit it. So if this was on a crane or something, you know, no problem whatsoever. You know, I would go in the app and set a tilt down limit so that you wouldn't crash into the you know, do that what I just did. You can set a soft limit, which will prevent that from happening. You can still tilt up to the maximum, which is that 45 that's in the software. So there you have it. It actually totally works. So the arm extensions allowing you to go with a long, heavy setup. So here we go. I'm going to take it off. So it's still stabilizing everything. You can go front to back, you can walk, you can follow somebody, all that kind of stuff. Now, as I was saying, you can still maybe whip this around a little bit. First of all, it's more weight for you to hold, but this is why, you know, these longer builds and the extension arms, it's really something that really comes into play, like when you use my Mitchell mount and you put it on a crane, or you have this on a tripod and use it as a remote head. You have this on your Steadicam arm. and it's vehicle mounted. I mean, you know, it's not something you want to be holding all day long. Now that we're getting into these longer setups, these longer builds, you can see once again how good this C-stand setup works for working with this long build. There's no way you can use the stock Ronin stand as you get longer. And as you add accessories onto here, your motors, your wireless transmitter, all that kind of stuff, of course, if you can keep the weight off of it, it helps. But also if you can mount it low. So we want to counteract the fact that all this weight is up high right here. So the other problem you're going to get into is, yes, we could lose the battery and lose a bunch of weight. And so what that would require is, it would require us to go further back. And the thing is, right now we're sort of almost maxed out on the dovetail. So let me turn this guy off. You can see it's in pretty good balance. I turned it off and didn't do anything funny. You would actually have to slide this back more if you lost the battery because you wanted to minimize the weight, and you run out of dovetail. So one of the next thing that CineMilled will be putting out is a Pro dovetail, is what I'm calling it. So basically it's going to be a little bit longer, and it's going to have a couple of surprise features that are really going to come into play for people that are using the long arms. But honestly, even if you're not using the long arms, the Pro dovetail that CineMilled is going to make is really going to be very useful. And I mean, the whole idea for all the CineMilled products is just to expand what you can do with the Ronin, is so that you can do a lot more with it than you initially thought. You know, for a $3,000 investment, this is already doing things that I never thought it would do. But you know, with these new inventions and these new accessories that we're putting together, it's really expanding what you can do with the Ronin. And as you see here, the long-awaited arm extensions working beautifully. It, you know, looks like the factory stuff, and it's fantastic. I hope all you guys like it, and it's available now. Purchase it on our website. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Thanks for Radiant for letting us use their camera and their little studio here. And I'll see you in the next one. F55 with the arm extensions on the Ronin.
Okay, sounds good.